Hello everybody, it is me, Faye, or Faith, whichever you prefer to call me, and this is my mess of a room, and welcome back to my channel. Now, before we begin this video, I do want to say a huge thank you to Mr. Gigi for my hoodie, because it is fucking awesome, and it's super comfy, and yeah, all I had to do was make a dad joke to get this for his little giveaway thing, so I'm incredibly grateful for it. I really love it. If you want to check out his channel, which I would greatly suggest, and even though I know I'd have nowhere near his subscriber count, I'm sure there's a few people who might be watching me who probably haven't heard of him, so if you haven't, check out his channel. I'll link it down below, but it might be covered up by the other stuff I used to cite my video, but trust me, it's there, or just look up his channel. It's really funny. So here we are again with another true crime video. This one frustrates the living shit out of me, and hopefully it will with you too, because it's an incredibly unfair case in my opinion. If you haven't seen, Kendall Rae did do like a whole documentary series in there, and I'll be using clips from that in this video to kind of express more of my points, but I'm trying to condense it into a smaller video. It's not going to be as in-depth as her documentary, or vlogumentary as she put it, series. So I would suggest checking that out if you want more information, or researching the case yourself. Warning beforehand, there is talk of suicide, self-harm, stuff like that. If you are uncomfortable with that subject material and it triggers you, I would suggest clicking off the video, because your mental well-being is far more important than my silly video. Now, Christian was a young man. He was born in 1992 and he lost his life in 2014. He would have been about 21 years old, 22 years old when he passed away, and he had a very close, tight-knit family. His mother, Ray, and the rest of his family describe him to be a very outgoing and kind of sporty guy. He was pretty much friends with everyone. He would really connect with people. He pretty much didn't care who you were. He was going to draw you in somehow, some way. He was also described to be kind of reckless at times, and there's lots of stories in that documentary where they talk about, you know, things he did. And honestly, he reminds me a lot of like an older version of my brothers. Now, for the longest time, he was dating a girl named Avery that he knew in high school, and they were dating, like I said, for an incredibly long time until she had to go to college, and then things started kind of making them more distant. Not only the actual physical distance, but their personalities clashed more, because Avery was pretty much the opposite of Christian. She was very quiet, she was very attentive to her studies, and she wanted to make it so that she would succeed in the world one day, and she really wanted to do something like that. So their personalities clashed a lot when it came to that. Now, earlier in their relationship, it kind of balanced out, but it seemed, again, with the physical distance and them both just growing up more and all that, it seemed like things were clashing more, so unfortunately they did end up splitting up. Now, after Avery and Christian broke up, Christian started dating a girl named Wheatley. She was younger than Christian, she was still going to the same school that he had gone to, and she was described to basically be a troublemaker. Christian's mother, Ray, describes an instance where Wheatley took a picture of Christian and Avery and had defaced it and thrown it on her bed, basically saying, "This is what I think of that picture." Now, I'm going to insert a clip of Ray describing the situation.
I have all these pictures of them, you know, of the kids, and they were all over the place. And I had one of Avery. Well, I think Avery had given it to me. One of them sitting in here of him and her. And so I'm sitting in my chair, and she comes and just flops down this picture on my little thing there in the bed, and I'm like, what is that? And she said, that's what I think of that picture. And I said, I mean, what is it a picture of? Because it was holes in it. Yeah. And she said, that was a picture of Avery and Christian, and that's what I think of it. And I was like, I mean, I was so shocked, really. Yeah. And so then I told Christian about it, and I was like, you know, Christian, there's something wrong with someone who comes into my room, takes a picture, does that, and then has the nerve to come and even acknowledge. I mean,
back into your room and show it to you.
Yeah. And of course, you know, he tried to blow it off. Oh, she didn't mean anything by it. I'm like, no, that's just, something's wrong.
And Ray is right in my opinion. I think it's very unhealthy for someone to take someone else's property, even if they don't like it, and deface it and then come forward about it in such a manner. It seems very, like, controlling, almost an abusive tactic to try and manipulate your partner or at least put fear into who your partner is close to. And I get it, you probably don't want to see pictures of your current partner and their ex laying around the house, but it's also not your house. See, in my experience, I've been dating people before where I've had to see their pictures with their exes, and while I'm not a fan of it, I would certainly not deface it and act as if I had the right to do it. And that's basically how Wheatley was acting, as if it was her right to destroy it. And everyone in Christian's family just kind of had an off feeling about Wheatley, like, just from the beginning. They did not particularly like her. Finally, their breaking point for Wheatley ever being in their house was when she gave their youngest daughter, Christian's youngest sister, Xanax. Now, this sister had never had Xanax before and didn't know what dose she could handle. And if you've ever had Xanax, it can be a experience. Like, I've never had it personally. I've never tried Xanax, but I do know people who have, and I have seen them react when they're on it. And it can vary from person to person, but a lot of people can't handle that feeling of being either incredibly tired or, you know, just feeling almost robotic. A lot of people just cannot handle that feeling. So this is what concerned the family the most.
Ran her off after that, told Christian get her out of here.
Get out.
Yeah.
No way.
No, it wasn't happening anymore. I mean, because she gave her something she'd never had and just left her back there.
Yeah.
You know, so who knows what could have happened.
Now, basically, when Wheatley was banned from his parents' house, Christian's brother Josh was going through a divorce, and because he was going through a divorce, he had an extra room open in his apartment. He offered this to Christian moved in with him, and so did Wheatley, but like, he didn't know that at first. She just kind of moved in herself without any warning. And throughout the duration of her stay, she was either constantly on drugs or being a troublemaker. You know, she was being herself, and it wasn't the best sign. So because she was constantly on drugs, Christian was actually debating on kicking her out.
He'd asked me to go and buy a drug test and basically give it to her and tell her to take the drug test. I got off work and I went to Walgreens or something and bought a drug test and came back, and I think it was like probably 7 or 8 o'clock. She came in, I handed her the drug test and told her to take it. And he had told me, you know, if she fails the drug test, kick her out. She refused to take the drug test. So she didn't take the drug test at all. She just said, I'm going to fail it for, you know, whatever. I think she said like pot or something like that. Called Christian, told him, and he said, you know, well, tell her to take the drug test anyways, because if she says she's going to fail anyways, then just take it and prove that that's all you're going to fail for. So she ended up finally, after probably an hour of, you know, trying to get her to take the drug test, finally took it and failed for, I think it was like benzos and pot and something else. I can't really remember.
So obviously Wheatley's been showing like major red flags, at least with her personality, but like the red flags in their relationship get even more apparent when you hear more of what she was saying to him kind of behind his back. She started telling Christian that she was worried she might be pregnant and to talk about his life insurance policy, because Christian, even though he was really young, he worked on a boat. I can't remember what specific type of boat. I thought it was a tugboat, but I'm not totally sure. But he was working boat jobs, and if you don't know, working on a boat can lead to a lot of disaster, and a lot of people do lose their lives while working on boats. So his employer had basically said, hey, I'll pay for a life insurance policy for you because it's easier to do that than have your family end up like suing us because we let something happen. So he got a life insurance policy. I can't remember for how much, but it was like a lot of money. And the main beneficiary was his mother, and the second beneficiary was originally Avery. Wheatley was in his ear basically saying she should be the main beneficiary, because if she is pregnant, then how is she going to take care of their baby, and if something happens? And she planted that seed in his head, so it kind of developed into more where he was actually talking to his mom about it, who didn't know that he had a life insurance policy until like much later on. So in February of 2014, this would come the day that Christian ended up passing away. Christian had heard that Wheatley was driving around with another guy, and he did not particularly like this, so he got off work. He was supposed to be on the boat for, I believe, a few days, and was going to come home to confront Wheatley about what she was doing. This is when Dylan, a friend most people assume of Christians. They had known each other since like grade school, but weren't necessarily like best of buds. But he came over, picked him up, and drove him back to the apartment. Now, we can't get a clear idea of what happened after this because Dylan and Wheatley's testimonies are the only ones that we have to go on for the events that followed that night. But how Dylan and Wheatley say it happened is Dylan brought home Christian and Wheatley started fighting. Christian told Dylan, hey, go get some Chick-fil-A and take all my money out of the bank. There are receipts showing that Dylan did go to Chick-fil-A that day and around the time that he said he did. There is also evidence from the ATM footage showing that Dylan did also go to the bank trying to withdraw all the cash. I think he also went into the actual bank, but I know there is footage of him basically going in there and they said, you know, we can't give you all the money, you're not Christian, so we can't do it. There are receipts showing that Dylan did go to Chick-fil-A that day and around the time that he said he did. There is also evidence from the ATM footage showing that Dylan did also go to the bank trying to withdraw all the cash. I think he also went into the actual bank, but I know there is footage of him basically going in there and they said, you know, we can't give you all the money, you're not Christian, so we can't do it. And that's also what Dylan said. At one point, Dylan claimed that Christian put a gun up to his head, threatening to kill himself, and that's when Dylan said that he took the gun and hid it behind a curtain, which I found strange. I would have put it somewhere where it was safe. I don't think behind a curtain is safe, but that's just me. This is when Dylan basically said to Christian, hey, I have to go to the Radio Shack or whatever electronics store was there, and I need to go radio shopping. Christian said, okay, go ahead. Can I have my gun back? And of all things, he decided to give his gun back. This is when Christian went into the bathroom. Dylan assumed that Christian was taking a shower. He comes back. Dylan says that Christian is still in the bathroom. Knocks on the door, asks, hey, are you okay? Christian doesn't answer. Dylan goes up to wake up Wheatley. As Dylan went to go upstairs to get Wheatley, Wheatley was also high on Xanax, so she was just passed the fuck out. She claimed that she didn't hear any gunshot go on because she was so, you know, high off Xanax. But that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Like, how could you wake up from someone, you know, saying, hey, wake up, and not a gunshot? Because if you have never heard a gunshot before, they're incredibly loud, especially in an enclosed space. I don't think that's news to anyone, but it's food for thought. This is when they did finally open the bathroom door and they found Christian slumped over against the bathtub with a gunshot wound to his head. This is when things get sketchy, especially with the forensics and the police, and I'm sorry if I can't get that into it because I frankly don't think I can go as into it as Kendall Ray's video can, so I will suggest again, watch her video. She has a whole like huge chunk of her documentary series dedicated to the forensics, but I'm going to analyze a few things here and there. So the first thing was that he was leaned over the tub and the gun was on his left side despite him being right-handed. We talked about this also in like the DJ case where the gun is in the opposite hand of the victim's dominant hand, and this is very unlikely in suicide cases because it's very hard for you to turn the gun that way with your non-dominant hand. So again, a lot of people think it's very likely that when it's not in the dominant hand of the person, it's in the hand of the person who ended up killing them, and for some reason a lot of the time they end up mistaking the hand. The gunshot was also inconsistent with a fatal self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, a lot of the times you can actually tell if it is self-inflicted because of where it would be, usually by the side of the head or through the mouth out the back of the head. I'm getting kind of graphic, so please, if YouTube takes down this video, I'm sorry. But yeah, this usually how self-inflicted gunshot wounds would appear on a person. It is unlikely for them to go from this end or even through this end. So it was inconsistent because from what I remember, it was kind of to the side, but again, it was in the non-dominant hand, so it didn't line up. And like I said, I can't go totally in depth because while I watched it, I felt that I should sum up the case for you guys so that you could get introduced to it. So again, suggest the video. I'm gonna also add a podcast link that has a true crime podcast with Ray in it where they discuss the case. Now the police immediately ruled this as a suicide, despite tampering with evidence that Wheatley did, because Wheatley did grab Christian's body, according to her and Dylan, holding him and basically saying he's not dead. And the police have also basically ignored the pleas from the family to reopen this case, because a lot of them do not believe that Christian ended up killing himself. It was just out of character. He was doing a lot of things like making plans with friends and family that seemed out of character for him to want to kill himself if he was making all these plans the same day he ended up dying. There's even a story from Ray saying, he called her and they had called each other about going to a concert together right before he ended up passing away. And there are multiple inconsistencies on Wheatley and Dylan's end that would make it very questionable on how strong their testimonies are. Now, I personally believe that Christian was murdered by Wheatley and Dylan, or one or the other. I do not believe that he killed himself. It just does not really add up to me, not only looking at the forensics, but also looking at how he acted and who he was. It just did not seem likely, especially at this time. Now, this petition that I'm linking down below is a White House petition, meaning basically that if it gets to, I believe, 100,000 signatures, it has to be reviewed, it has to be reopened, and it has to be looked at. And I will also be leaving resources down below to just send the family words of encouragement. This has not been easy for them. A lot of distrust with the police and the DA specifically. So a lot of this has just been really hard on them, and I can't imagine how hard it's been on his mother. His mother's been so vocal about this, and she just wants answers for what happened to her baby, and I can't imagine that pain. I really do hope they get the justice that they're looking for. Anyways, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you have any theories on what happened, or you have any other cases you'd like me to cover, or anything like that, go ahead and tell me in the comments down below. And if you like content like this, or you like my reviews, or anything else that I've been trying out, go ahead and subscribe, because that would make my day. And as always, let's try to make the world just a little bit less shittier. I'll see you all later.